Hello again, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. It's The Big Hit. So happy you've joined us once again. My name is Josh Hill. We've got a lot to talk about here today. A lot of football talk here today. We're going to begin in the National Football League. As the Philadelphia Eagles have been grounded, we'll spotlight some of the issues with the Philadelphia Eagles offense and look at where they can go from here. And then we'll switch over to the baseball diamond in Major League Baseball, and our analysts will give their early favorites to win the World Series as the playoffs is approaching. And then we'll move on to college football and discuss some movement in the top 25 polls because there were a lot of different upsets that took place last Saturday. And then we'll close out the show talking IUP football. Crimson Hawks got on the win column for the first time this season, and we will also preview their game against the Mercyhurst Lakers. All that and more coming your way right here on The Big Hit. Hi again, everybody, and welcome into The Big Hit right here on IUP-TV. Happy you've joined us for another week of sports talk, and of course we've got plenty to talk about, chock full of sports here in this hour. We're going to begin in the National Football League with our NFL analysts, Jose Villanueva and Ari Ohan. Guys, we'll go ahead and start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team we like to start off the show with, and really a good performance for the Steelers, shredding the 49ers defense on Sunday. 43-18 victory for Pittsburgh in their home opener. DeAngelo Williams filling in pretty nicely for Le'Veon Bell. 3-touchdown performance for him. But Le'Veon Bell coming back from his suspension here in Week 3 against the team that they're going to be playing here. What is the role of DeAngelo Williams going to be when Le'Veon Bell returns against the Rams?
Well, you have to think he's going to get some carries still. He's been playing too well to not, share the ball with Bell. Bell is the best running back in the NFL, in my opinion, but he hasn't played since last December. He also missed the Steelers playoff game against the Ravens. So he's kind of rusty, but he is very explosive, and I think they'll share carries. And it's going to be a high-scoring game. Best offense in the NFL against one of the top 3 in the Rams. So fantasy people, get your stats out.
And I feel like this is the rebirth of the Jonathan Stewart and DeAngelo Williams tandem back in Carolina from 2008. I could see them both getting between 10 to 15 to 20 carries each and both posting 100-yard games, and some of them, they both have the skill set, and DeAngelo Williams really found the fountain of youth, I say, with joining the Steelers. Yeah,
DeAngelo Williams, of course, getting some big carries. Le'Veon Bell, such a talented player. They could even line him up at receiver, maybe have Le'Veon and DeAngelo Williams on the field at the same time to really create some matchup problems. Of course, with Antonio Brown on the outside, really a nightmare for opposing defenses with all of the different weapons the Steelers have at their disposal. So St. Louis this week, one of the best defenses in the league against the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the best offenses in the league. Should be a good matchup in Week 3. The Green Bay Packers, of course, a lot of people's NFC favorites, have really started off the season well, 2-0, and got a bit of revenge from the NFC Championship game a year ago, defeating the Seattle Seahawks, this time at Lambeau Field, 27-17. Green Bay 2-0, different story for Seattle. They are 0-2 this season. Is it time to be worried if you're a Seahawks fan? I know it's early, but an 0-2 start, not the way a lot of people drew it up.
There's no reason to worry. A team with Marshawn Lynch, Jimmy Graham, and Russell Wilson should not be worried after 2 weeks. They're playing the Chicago Bears, who are probably one of the worst teams in the NFL, so if they don't win, then it's time to panic. But in a city like Seattle, where they've made 2 straight Super Bowls, there's no reason to panic. They'll be fine.
And if there's any team that can overcome adversity, it's the Seahawks. Last year, starting out 3-3 to that amazing comeback against the Green Bay in the NFC Championship, the Seahawks definitely have it. And I don't expect Cam Chancellor to hold out much longer, so once he comes back, they're going to play dominantly, and the worst scenario I could see is them making the wild card at worst.
Yeah, and anytime, of course, that home field advantage. Seattle's been on the road to start the year, so anytime they can get back at home, get that fan support, the 12th man behind them, have to really like their chances in just about any game they play at home. So we'll see what Seattle can do. We'll look at another team that kind of flies under the radar every year, in my opinion, the Arizona Cardinals. They're really perennial playoff contenders year in and year out, and they've gotten off to another great start this year, led by their quarterback, Carson Palmer, who has put in that work against opposing defenses this year. The Cardinals 2-0 this season, and Palmer coming off a 4-touchdown performance against the Chicago Bears last Sunday. So look at this NFC West and the dynamic with Seattle 0-2. Would you say the Cardinals are the favorite to win the division right now?
I do not agree with that. Seattle is by far more talented, and they're going to pick it up. But they could surprise a lot of people. I mean, look at the NFL right now. There are so many surprises going on. A bunch of teams 0-2. A bunch of teams you'd think that would be 0-2 are 2-0. So this NFL season is a bag of tricks. Who knows what can happen? But I do agree that the Seahawks will be the eventual champions of that division.
And right now, I think the Cardinals are the team right now. This Cardinals team reminds me of the 2008 Cardinals. They got a veteran quarterback who has researched his career. Larry Fitzgerald's putting up great numbers. And the best part about it is they actually have a defense that can lead them. But what I see panning out is the Week 17 matchup between the Seahawks and Cardinals will decide the winner of the NFC West.
Great point.
Yeah, both of those teams certainly look to be in it until the very end, and we'll see how that NFC West shapes out. Of course, it seems to always come down to the last week of the season no matter what, and the schedule makers make it so. Of course, that's a big matchup coming, as you said, Ari. But we'll go ahead and move and recap the game of the week in the NFL, at least as far as they put it. The Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles squaring off. Dallas picks up a 20-10 win, and boy, it was a tough game for Philadelphia, and it was a tough game for Dallas as well. Seems like something always just goes wrong for the Cowboys no matter how high the expectations are this year. Now, Tony Romo is on the shelf for 6 to 8 weeks with a broken collarbone. He's not going to have surgery, so that is the good sign. Hopes to be back later this year. But on the other side of things, the Eagles' ground game was well grounded against the Dallas defense. DeMarco Murray not too happy with his offensive line and really did not have a good effort at all. 21 carries and 11 yards. Not the greatest stat line for DeMarco Murray at all, coming from Dallas against his former team. So this is kind of a complicated question, but just bear with me here. Would you be more worried about the Cowboys losing Tony Romo for an extended period of time, or the Eagles not being able to run the football in that system that Chip Kelly has implemented?
This is a toss-up because the Eagles don't look like they're going to pick it up anytime soon. This offensive line looks beat up with the loss of Evan Mathis, and I think that is the biggest key why DeMarco Murray isn't putting up the numbers that everyone thought he would. He has had 370 touches last year, which is playing a big factor, but I think the biggest problem for Murray is the missing guard position.
And I'd be more worried about the Cowboys because between that 6 to 8 week span, they play teams like the Falcons, the Patriots, Seahawks, and the Giants. So I don't think they could get it done with Brandon Weeden and no Des Bryant, honestly. Their best chances with the Saints, who are going to be without Drew Brees during that matchup. So I don't think they'll be in playoff contention when Romo comes back.
Yeah, when you look at this situation, one team has a chance to work through it. The other team just has to kind of buy time. The Cowboys just have to wait until Tony Romo gets back. The Eagles at least have a chance to have DeMarco Murray and that offense out on the field and try to just work through all of their kinks, so to speak. But we'll close out our NFL discussion talking about one of the most polarizing figures in the entire NFL, Johnny Manziel. He actually earned his first win as a starting quarterback in the National Football League on Sunday, a 28-14 win over Marcus Mariota and the Tennessee Titans. So Johnny Manziel, of course, year one was not a banner year for him. He really refocused himself in the offseason, comes out, gets his first NFL win. So is this a sign of good things to come for this second-year player? I know Cleveland really doesn't look like they're going with him moving forward, though.
You know, I did think it was, but I've heard reports today that Josh McCown is going to be named the starter for Week 3. Sad to see because Manziel has been really accurate, which was a problem for him last year. But I don't think McCown holds up. He is very old, and Manziel is bringing in a new, young attitude to these Browns that are lacking talent. With the loss of Josh Gordon and just a depleted defense, I think Johnny Manziel is their best option going here.
And with that one win, I really don't think Johnny has really established himself as an elite quarterback or even a starting quarterback yet. But I feel that the Cleveland Browns should give him a chance. I mean, he plays the Raiders and Ravens the next 2 weeks. They both have depleted secondaries. But I think his real test should come against the Broncos. No, I don't expect him to beat the Broncos. But if he fares well, I think that he earns his job as a starting quarterback. But I think he needs the chance first.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, look in here at the NFL as a whole. Teams that start 2-0, of course, their chances to make the playoffs are about 60%. 1-1, about half the teams make it. And when you're 0-2, your chances go down to around 38 to 40% to make the playoffs. So I know it's early, but these starts can really have a big bearing on the standings later on. That's all the time we have here in the National Football League segment. We'd like to thank Jose Villanueva and Ari Ohan. We're going to take a break, come back with some Major League Baseball talk when we return here on The Big Hit.
It's hard to explain. It just became home. There are hundreds of majors and programs, bachelor's degrees to PhDs, small classes and faculty that really get to know you. Amazing internships and everywhere, programs that help to find a job that is right for you. It's what IUP is about, a commitment to your success. See it for yourself. Visit us, Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Find your success.
Receiving a Jefferson Award for public service was an honor I will always cherish. I've known since I was very young that I wanted to help make a difference, but I didn't create an organization to win an award. I did it because as a teacher, I believe all kids deserve a good start and a shot at high achievement. I'm April King, a graduate of Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Get my story at IUP.edu.
And welcome back into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. It's The Big Hit. We're going to cast our lines out into the world of Major League Baseball and putt our way through the end of the regular season into the playoffs. And guys, we'll start with the first team in Major League Baseball to clinch a playoff berth, and really the only team that has clinched a playoff berth so far, the St. Louis Cardinals. They've been playing well all year long, despite the injuries, but add another one to the list, guys, because catcher Yadier Molina has a thumb injury. The timetable for his return is unknown at the moment, but the Cardinals have a really drastic change as far as their win percentage with Molina in the lineup and without. Listen to this. With Molina in the lineup, .593 winning percentage. Without him, they're just a 500 team. And for a team that's the best team in baseball, 500 really not too good for them. But you look at this Yadier Molina injury, what does it mean for the Cardinals if they lose him for the season? He's certainly really a big presence in the back end, and he gets it done with the bat as well.
Well, to me, this is not going to be a universal view, but Yadier Molina is the best ball player the St. Louis Cardinals have. He may not have all the advanced stats that point to that. However, you look at him on the eye test, and I've watched a lot of Cardinals games, he is the one he is the straw that stirs the drink. He controls all those excellent pitchers. He gets all the clutch hits, or many of the clutch hits, I will say. And without him, I do not see the Cardinals going to the World Series.
I'm going to have to agree with that. Yadier's the captain of the team. He runs the show for the Cardinals, and he's just too dangerous from the backstop. The Cardinals are going to get ran all over during the postseason. I mean, when Molina has the ability to throw out runners like Billy Hamilton from his knees, you know you have something special back there, and it's going to really hurt the Cardinals going into the postseason. But I still think they're the most dangerous team in the postseason. It's a Mike Matheny coached team. He knows what he's doing. He's been there before. He'll figure it out.
Yeah, the Cardinals always seem to just find a way, no matter what they're faced with. They're able to come up with a game plan to make it work somehow, especially this time of year where they really seem to excel. But the team that's getting there and that has been chasing the Cardinals all year long, the Pittsburgh Pirates, are fresh off back-to-back series against two of the best teams in Major League Baseball, in the Chicago Cubs and the Los Angeles Dodgers. They went 3 of 4 in those 7 games, but were able to win that series against the LA Dodgers, against two of the better pitchers in the game. They have a 2-game lead over Chicago right now in the wild card scenario and are 4 behind the St. Louis Cardinals for the NL Central. So do you think the Pirates will hold on to the home wild card spot or lose it to the surging Cubs, who have been playing red hot down the stretch here?
It's impossible to say from this juncture. The Pirates do play the Cubs 3 games at Wrigley Field, and it couldn't be any tougher for them, because if they go into that wild card game, they're probably going to go against Jake Arrieta. And do you know what his ERA is against the Pirates?
I do know.
It doesn't start with a 2, doesn't even start with a 1. 0.93 ERA against the Pirates this year. He cannot lose to the Pirates. I don't see it happening. I do not see the Pirates catching the Cardinals, and it might be an unpopular view, but I don't see the Pirates making it out of the wild card game this year.
I don't think the Pirates have to worry about losing the home playoff spot. In their 3-game series with the Cubs coming up at Wrigley Field, they're going to have Garrett Cole, Francisco Liriano, and A.J. Burnett pitching those games. It is very easy to imagine that they're going to win 2 of 3, if not sweep that series at Wrigley. So I don't see why the Pirates wouldn't play at home this wild card game.
Yeah, looking at the Chicago Cubs, of course, you mentioned Jake Arrieta and his success, a sub-1 ERA against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Arrieta's done it to pretty much everybody. 19 wins, 1.96 ERA this season. If you're a Pirates fan, are you more worried about Arrieta and the Cubs than any other pitcher in this one-game series? Because really it's winner take all, and I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't be comfortable if the Pirates were playing the worst team in baseball in one game. Anything can happen.
In a word, yes. I would be very, very worried if I was a Pirate fan. The Cardinals, almost so much has to happen for the Pirates to be able to catch the Cardinals. And looking at that list of things, very unlikely to me. So whoever's home or away, I don't see it mattering all that much. One good thing is the Pirates do have, like Jared mentioned, they do have some very good pitchers of their own. Garrett Cole is finally made that jump to be a legitimate ace in the National League. And if they can get Cole against Arrieta, I'd say they have a shot. I'm kind of backtracking on what I said earlier, but it is an uphill climb going against somebody like Jake Arrieta.
If Pirate fans have to be worried about Arrieta, I think that Cubs fans have to be just as worried about Garrett Cole. This is the best pitcher from the first half of the season with Garrett Cole and the best pitcher from the second half of the season with Jake Arrieta. That's just going to be a great game, and both are going to pitch phenomenal. Whoever has the home field advantage, I think that's the team that's probably going to come out on top.
Yeah, look at a winner-take-all kind of scenario. Really nothing like the wild card game. And you look back to the wild card game a couple years ago, the Pirates and Reds, you just see the kind of energy and the emotion that that game can bring. So that looks like it's what's kind of on the horizon in the National League side of things. Switching over to the American League, talking about the AL East, the Yankees and Blue Jays are facing off this weekend in a critical series for playoff implications. The Yankees currently trail Toronto by 2.5 games in that AL East. But looking past this Blue Jays series for New York, they don't play a team with a winning record after this series. So can they use their weak schedule as a way to catapult themselves to an AL East title?
I don't believe so. I feel that Toronto is the better team. Obviously, they have the #1 offense in the majors. And in fact, with 825 runs, they have more than 100 runs more than the second-place team, the second-best offense in the league. And they finally got that ace, David Price. We've said it before. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And he showed it the other night. He shut down the Yankees convincingly. I see Toronto with Josh Donaldson, Edwin Encarnacion, and Jose Bautista in the middle of that order, and David Price on the hill. I see them being a far better team than the Yankees, and I think they're going to bring home the AL East.
Yeah, I think that the Blue Jays are just too good of a team to lose this title. Also, the Yankees don't have the pitching staff that they need to win a title. If you look at the Yankees pitching, they have had over 36 players take the mound this year, which is an MLB record. And that is not a good record to have. Usually an MLB team has about 12 pitchers take the mound throughout the year, and they're 12 consistent guys that play well for them. Also, I think just the middle of the Blue Jays lineup is just too powerful for the Yankees to even have a chance to catch up with them.
Yeah, and also looking at Toronto, they get to play in that climate-controlled dome at home. It may not seem like a big deal, but when you consider what New York could be playing in October, the weather could be cold, the ball may not carry as well, and with the heavy hitters that Toronto has, you would have to think that the run production and the offensive difference would certainly favor the Blue Jays in that climate-controlled environment. But guys, we'll close out our baseball discussion here, kind of looking at the big picture here as the playoffs approach. Of course, we look at who is kind of gearing up and who may be World Series contenders. And right now, a couple of injuries are really separating some teams here. Of course, Yadier Molina, we mentioned it. Troy Tulowitzki is out of the Blue Jays. We talked about that last week. So right now, it looks like the Kansas City Royals are kind of a team that has been really consistent all year long. Would you say the Royals are your favorite to win the World Series today?
If you'd have asked me this question a week ago, I would have had a clear-cut answer, and that would have been maybe. However, the Cardinals, to me, before the Molina injury, were the powerhouse. They were the #1 team. However, with the Molina injury, it was a tough week for a lot of teams because we know that the Cubs and the Pirates, only one of those is even going to make the playoffs past the wild card game. The Cardinals have lost Yadier Molina. The Royals, like you said, who's their ace? Johnny Cueto, his ERA is 5.12 with the Royals after it was 2.62 with the Reds. And they were counting on him to come in and kind of be that number one pitcher, but he hasn't been. And after him, they really don't have much rotation. So for me, I gotta go back to the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, even with the loss of Tulowitzki, you look at the numbers, he wasn't really a huge part of their offense after he came over from the Rockies. Their offense is anchored through the three middle guys of Donaldson, Bautista, and Encarnacion. And with David Price on the mound, like we said, the Blue Jays are my pick for the World Series at this juncture, and of course that could all change in 2 days.
I'm going to have to agree with him. I don't think the Royals have it at all. Their best pitcher this year is Edison Volquez. And in his 2 playoff games, he has a 12.15 ERA, which is awful. And if I had to pick a team to win the World Series, I can't really pick it, but it has to be one of the 3 teams coming out of the NL Central, which is a real shame that only one of them is going to make it to the NLCS. But the AL as a whole, they just have a lack of pitching depth, except for the Houston Astros, which are slumping miserably right now. And I would actually have to predict that an NL Central team wins the World Series in 6 games.
Yeah, for Kansas City, my main man, Eddie V, is really going to have to step up large. He did not do that last year for the Pirates in the wild card game. I'm sure we all remember that. And Brandon Crawford had a lot to say about that. But enough of that sad talk. We're going to close out our Major League Baseball segment here. We'd like to thank Jake Enders and Jared Brown. Guys, we'll take a break, come back, and move into the world of college football here on The Big Hit, so don't go away. So guys, with the tournament coming up, what are IUP's chances this year?
I think they have a really good chance because the PSAC is not that strong compared to IUP. IUP moves the ball a lot quicker than most teams. They're very well-rounded. They've been playing together for a while. They've got a lot of big-time transfers. So I think that they have the edge over most of their opponents simply because they have experience. Experience gives you the edge any day of the week. So that's definitely why I think they can win the PSAC tournament for sure. What do you think, Norm?
The Career Development Center, they've helped me with my internship, being able to market myself, just being able to package myself the right way in order to land a job that will be secure. I had the ability to sharpen my resume skills, and my resume is beautiful, and I think anyone in the communications department will definitely agree that their resume is probably top of the line.
And welcome back into The Big Hit. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to shift our focus and talk some college football here with the best dressed guy on the show. I'm just going to give out that award right now. Will Gaucher. My man Sean Fritz isn't looking too bad himself either. Guys, let's go ahead and start with some college football, of course. Another week in college football means that a lot of notable things happened, and we're going to try to break them all down here. I'll start with the #1 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes in their game against Northern Illinois, a team that has been okay, but boy, I did not expect them to put up the effort that they did against Ohio State. Ohio State nearly escapes 20-13 victory over Northern Illinois. And the quarterback controversy really didn't help Ohio State much at all. Some really solid QBRs from these guys, and of course I'm joking when I say that because Cardell Jones posted a 6.3 QBR and JT Barrett finished with a 16.8 QBR, and that's out of a scale of 100. Remember, 50 is average, so these guys on the low end of the spectrum there. So should Ohio State continue to use this strategy, or is it a system that Ohio State will continue to struggle with?
Josh, you speak on all the numbers that it just blows my mind because we understand that their talent sets and what they bring to the table and what they can do for this football team. I believe that the system should be done away with. I was all for JT Barrett stepping forward and becoming a starter. Was not comfortable with Cardell just yet. I mean, he went out and won those 3 big games. But the product that JT had put out his freshman campaign, remember, this was his first shot at seeing any college football. And for him to go down, he didn't get to finish it out. I believe that it's more, or so they have too many talented players. I feel like they're trying to spread the ball out to all these individuals, and it's just not working because there are so many. I mean, I would name them all, but we would be here for quite a bit. So I feel as though it's the quarterbacks, it's, you know, in their heads right now. Got to flesh that out. Urban Meyer will do a good job. You'll see a better product this week. But I feel like it's more so they have too many talented players.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think if you look at Ohio State's roster, there's a whole mess of NFL talent on there. Just starting with the quarterbacks, obviously Cardell Jones and JT Barrett. To bring up the question that you asked, Josh, I think they've really just got to go with whatever's working. I don't think anybody saw Northern Illinois. I mean, they are a powerhouse in the MAC, but that's not really saying much. It's not one of the most powerful conferences in all of college football. They have had some good teams over the years, but I don't think anybody really saw them giving Ohio State a scare like that. And for both quarterbacks to play as poorly as they did, I think it was a pretty big wake-up call that Ohio State has got to be clicking on all cylinders, especially going through the rest of the season, as they could have some potential scares like this from lower caliber football teams.
Definitely.
I think if you're Urban Meyer, you just got to ride the hot hand. I don't know who the hot hand was this week because, like you said, just pretty poor numbers for both quarterbacks. That being said, I think that would just be the best option for Urban Meyer right now because no guy has really separated himself like I think Urban Meyer had planned for one of these quarterbacks to do, and it just hasn't happened yet. So I think they just have to keep rolling with it until they can figure it out.
Yeah, and when you look at Ohio State, of course, they are the hunted. They are the reigning and defending national champions. They are the #1 team in the nation. So they're the team with the target on their back. And they really just have to get used with these teams coming out and really trying to sock it to them because they're the team that everyone's trying to beat. And it's not an easy position to be in, but it's a position that Ohio State's going to need to learn to accept and excel in because looking at their Big Ten rival Michigan State, who moved up to #2 in the polls. So you look at the polls, 2 Big Ten teams, Ohio State at 1, Michigan State at 2. Looking at the schedule, neither team faces a ranked opponent until they play each other in November 21st to be exact. So looking at the schedule, it's pretty easy, but does it make them vulnerable to some of these opponents, or can we expect both of these teams to be 1 and 2 when they play each other? Because Northern Illinois, anything can happen any given week.
Yeah, I do not see them being 1 and 2, only because Michigan State is a well-oiled machine right now. They have a plethora of running backs that is going. Connor Cook is looking like a Heisman contender. Their defense is very stout. But as you had mentioned, with Ohio State, we've seen this great talent that's surrounding both of these schools. But it's that body of work that's going to come against the SEC teams, especially this year, because we thought Auburn was going to be up there. We thought Alabama was going to be up there. Neither one of those teams, basically right now, they're out. They're out of the picture. And so it's like when they're playing these ranked teams back and back, Notre Dame, who we'll talk about later, they're playing all these ranked teams, and you're struggling against Northern Illinois. And nothing against them. You know, they have to go out there and lace up their cleats just how everybody else does, but as for the Big Ten, they need to start generating those games because they're not there. They're taking an easy route to it, and I see them. Ohio State can stay in the top 4 only because they have a winning streak going, but Michigan State has a chance to slide out and be on the outside looking in just based on their schedule.
I think you hit it right on the head. I think these are 2 excellent football teams, like you said. They've got a lot of great things going for them, a lot of talent, a plethora of talent, and you look at both these different teams, and they have phenomenal defenses who can keep them in these games. But I think, kind of like you mentioned, they really, because their body of work moving forward isn't as strong as some of these other teams, like especially the SEC teams like Ole Miss, who we'll talk about in a little bit, LSU, a couple of these different teams. They don't have the body of these. Ohio State and Michigan State will not have the body of work. I think what they really got to be going for to stay in that top 4 is style points. They need to get they need to get big leads, and they need to keep them. Shutouts, whatever they need to do to stay in that top 4. I think that's the only way they stay 1 and 2, just because of the body of work. The Big Ten is not a strong conference this year. It's really Ohio State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, and neither team plays Wisconsin this year because they're in the other division. I see Michigan State does play Michigan in October. So, I mean, I don't know how strong Michigan is this year. I don't think they're as strong as they have been in years past. Obviously, one of the greatest college football programs of all time. But with Jim Harbaugh coming in, he's got younger players who are motivated. I think they could give Michigan State a scare potentially. But other than that, it should be clear sailing from here on out for both Ohio State and Michigan State. The only issue with staying in that 1 and 2 spots are the possibility of a letdown game, because any letdown game can drop you and can have teams like Ole Miss, LSU, Notre Dame, Georgia jump ahead of you. So I think that's the key for them, is just they've got to go out and win big every week, and I think that's the only way it's possible for them to stay 1 and 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about a conference that's not really prime time, so to speak. That would be the Big Ten, but a conference that is big time is the SEC, and we're going to shift our focus and talk a little SEC football right now, because Ole Miss was able to jump up to number 3 in the country after going into Tuscaloosa, beating the Alabama Crimson Tide. It was the first time they've done it in a while, and the first time in school history that Ole Miss has beat Auburn in back-to-back, or Alabama rather, in back-to-back seasons. So 43-37 Ole Miss over Alabama, and boy did my man Chad Kelly show up for the Rebels. 341 yards, 3 touchdown passes for Chad Kelly, showing up against that vaunted Alabama defense. So really the question is simple. Is Ole Miss that good, or is Alabama overrated? They came into the year, a lot of people expecting them to be national championship contenders.
Yes, definitely. I believe Ole Miss is just that good. I mean, these boys looked fast. They looked hungry. They filled all their assignments. I mean, that let down a little bit at the end of the game when Alabama was making a push, but that's going to happen when a good team comes and meets you, especially at home. They're going to make a little push, but, man, I really like what Ole Miss is going to be doing in the future. They have, again, kind of how Ohio State and Michigan State we were talking about, they have NFL talent just riddled all throughout that program. It's really nice to see them come back to light. I mean, it's been quite a few, maybe a few decades since they've been this relevant. It's really exciting to see.
I don't know. I think I wouldn't say Alabama is overrated, because Alabama is still Alabama. They still have a tremendous amount of talent on that football team. They're still a Nick Saban coach football team. I think the controversy at quarterback may have plagued them a little bit at the beginning of the season. But that being said, Ole Miss has a tremendous football team too. They're a legitimate contender right now, especially coming out of the SEC, which is the most powerful conference in college football. I think Ole Miss is for real, but that being said, I don't know if they're there at the end of the year. With Ole Miss, because they haven't done it in, like you said, a very long time, we saw this from them last year, that they looked good. They got really hot last year. I will believe it when I see it with Ole Miss. I think they're a good football team. They've got a lot of talent. I do like Chad Kelly. I just don't know if I can pick them in a tough SEC West to stay undefeated and be there at the end, because there are other teams in the SEC who are great football teams. LSU is also undefeated too. That being said, they've only played 2 games, but they've also had both their games against SEC West competition too. So, and that was the first big test for Ole Miss. They lived up to it. They stepped up to the plate, and that was a big win for them in their program, but I don't know if they're going to be able to go up against this type of competition every week and come out the victor each and every week, which is what they need to do.
Yeah, really impressive for Ole Miss to go on the road and put up 43 points on this Alabama defense, who many expect to be locked down. But when you look at the numbers, Alabama has really surrendered a large amount of points to a lot of teams. You look back to the national championship game and some of these other games, teams are putting up 30, 40 points on this Alabama defense. Maybe it's just the style of offense, how the game transpires, but for a defense that's filled with blue chip and 5-star recruits and perennially has a #1 recruiting class in the nation, head coach Nick Saban, this defense has been picked apart a little bit for sure. But we'll go ahead and move on to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, of course, one of the most popular programs in college football. They've moved up to number 6 in the nation after defeating Georgia Tech 30-22. Deshaun Kaiser, his first start as the quarterback for the Irish, 242 yards passing for Deshaun Kaiser, touchdown and an interception to go with that total. Now, looking at Notre Dame's schedule here, they've got 3 ranked teams on their schedule at this point right now, and that being number 11 Clemson, number 19 USC, and number 21 Stanford. Kind of a difficult question to predict the future here, but we're going to ask you anyway. Can they win all 3 of these games against 3 ranked teams?
I don't think that they can get that done. Let me tell you. They've lost their starting quarterback, lost their starting running back. Offense, they're there, you could tell it, but now with this new quarterback coming in, they're so young now, and it's going to take him a while to get going. I mean, it was a beautiful win for Georgia Tech, who I think is really, they can shake things up in the ACC. Don't let this loss fool you on them. But I think that they're just not ready. Not now. I mean, they were on the track. I mean, my God, it was going to be beautiful. Those gold helmets were going to look so nice with that gold patch. But I just feel if they can win all 3 of these games, I mean, they're in. There's no doubt about that. It's just going to take them a lot of learning. It's going to be a learning experience.
I have to agree with you. I think it's going to be very tough, but I do think that there is a way that they can win these 3 games. They had a young defense last year, a very injury-plagued defense last year, and they've got a lot of leaders on the defensive side of the ball. Sheldon Day is a captain, Jalen Smith is a captain, who's a tremendous talent, Jalen Smith, and Joe Schmidt's a captain at middle linebacker. I think they ride this defense, and I think head coach Brian Kelly finds a way to kind of manage this offense like he did Saturday. I felt that they put the ball in the hands of C.J. Procise-Moore, who had a tremendous day on the ground again for the 2nd week in a row. He rushed for 198 yards this week against Georgia Tech, and I think they rode this defense in this past win this week, and I think that's what they continue to do. I think if the offense goes out there and executes, I think that gives a lot of confidence to this defense. I think they play better as this offense plays better. Mm-hmm. And I think if this defense can keep Notre Dame's offense in the game, Notre Dame will find ways to score points. It's going to be tough going up against Clemson, especially in Death Valley. It's going to be a night game, prime time, ABC. That's what it's all about in college football. I think Notre Dame can step up to the challenge, go into Death Valley, and come out with a victory, and then come home to take on USC, and then later in the year head out to Stanford. It's going to be tough. I think Notre Dame can do it. I think Deshaun Kaiser's a great athlete. He really understands the system that Coach Brian Kelly wants to run, and I think Notre Dame finds a way to do it.
Yeah, it's really going to take a one-game-at-a-time approach for Notre Dame. You can't discount the other opponents on the schedule either. These 3 are ranked, but of course, rankings are always subject to change, and the polls are constantly changing, so they might even have some more opponents that could be ranked by season's end. So keep on trucking along for Notre Dame. It's really been an interesting season for them here in the early going. But we're going to move on to another game in the SEC, one that I certainly had my eye on. And the LSU Tigers ran all over, ran around, ran through the Auburn Tigers with sophomore star running back Leonard Fournette. Cue his music, because boy did he have a day. 19 carries, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns. A lot of noteworthy gifts coming out of that game with some of the runs that he had and some of his antics down along the sideline, running people over. Take a listen to his season total here throughout the 2015 season. 47 carries, 387 yards, and 6 touchdowns for this man, and he certainly is just that, a man. Leonard Fournette really putting in the work in every sense of the word. So my question to you is he now the leading Heisman candidate over Ezekiel Elliott? We're going to close our discussion with that question there.
Definitely, Josh. Ohio State's not giving Elliott the ball as in previous, those last 3 games, what was it, 220, 240, 260, and you're seeing, 20 carries, 30 carries. And how I mentioned earlier, there's just too many athletes on this team for them to just keep handing it off to Elliott, even though it is working. And I'm not understanding why the coaches aren't handing the ball off to him more, but that's for Urban and them to work out. This young man, me and Sean were talking about there, he is a man among boys. I mean, my God, if that is not the definition of NFL ready his sophomore year, be on the lookout for this man in the future, because Sean, you had said it earlier, he is a star, bona fide star, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. And he will be holding that trophy in New York in December. Believe that.
No, I agree. I think that is literally the best way that you can possibly describe him. He's a man among boys. He's 20 years old. He's a sophomore. I watched him 2 years ago coming out of high school as a senior. I said to myself, this kid is going to be something special. Surely enough, 2 years into his college career, and he's already a Heisman candidate. Mm-hmm. This kid is a beast. He runs hard, he runs physical, he's a downhill back, and he's got the numbers to prove it. 387 yards rushing this year, 6 touchdowns, like you mentioned, Josh. And as I mentioned earlier, this is all in 2 games against top quality opponents, SEC opponents, Mississippi State and now Auburn, who obviously both have struggled this year, but they're still SEC opponents. They're still tremendous athletes. And for him to put up these type of numbers, I think he absolutely has to be the top candidate for the Heisman Trophy right now. Ezekiel Elliott is a tremendous talent, but like you said, they've got so much talent around him. It's tough to just rely solely on him. Not saying LSU doesn't have talent, but Leonard Fournette's a complete beast. I think they would be stupid not to keep giving him the ball as they have been doing. Tremendous talent, tremendous athlete. I think he's definitely the top candidate right now.
Yeah, and something about the SEC just seems to translate its way into the National Football League. So this guy seems to be ready. It reminds me of Adrian Peterson, the way he runs the football. Just absolutely physical, punishing, but has the speed to outrun you as well. It's certainly a lethal combination. But college football season heating up. We're loving every second of it. That's all the time we have here in the Gridiron, talking college football with Will Gaucher and Sean Fritz. We'll step up, come back with our final segment of the evening here as we close the show, talking IUP football when we return right here on The Big Hit.
Oh, hey, Devontae. I'm gonna work on something, man. I want you to check it out.
Keep working on that.
Okay.
And welcome back into the Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. Our final segment in here before my man Willie G makes an appearance once again. We're going to talk some IUP football in the Crimson Huddle, and we've got some veteran analysts here to talk IUP football. Malusi Kitchen, Vaughn Dalzell, guys. Welcome back, Malusi. I know it's been a while, but we're here now, and that's all that matters, okay? We'll talk some IUP football here and talk about IUP's first win of the season, 38-13 over Lock Haven. Boy, it wasn't great in the first half of play, but Crimson Hawks made some adjustments, come out with their first win. But my question to you is, was this a must-win for the Crimson Hawks?
Oh, absolutely, and especially with the game they had last week, letting up 28 second-half points in the week before. I think if you're IUP, you had to win this game, and I think they came out, they responded very well. They took advantage of their opportunities, which I thought was great. Offense, they got their offense going. The defense, I thought, held strong throughout the second half. Because a loss like that from the previous week, you can't have that. That's just unacceptable for any team. So I think they did a great job of responding to all the pressure and criticism that they had this past week and came out with a resounding win.
Yeah, I agree. You never want to start a season off 0-2, especially when you let the one from last week slip away with the two missed extra points and everything. But the quarterbacks didn't play as well as we hoped they would, but the running game was very strong for the Crimson Hawks, totaling almost 400 total yards of rushing just from the game. Drew Williams had himself a day. The defense played very well. We'll talk about Dorian Lane later on in the segment. But there's playmakers all over the field for IUP, and you never want to go down 0-2 and lose to a team inside your conference. So very big one for IUP, and hopefully they keep it rolling for the next week.
Yeah, the Crimson Hawks really slowed the game down against Lock Haven, and they did it through running the football because 8 players had a rushing attempt for IUP, and leading the charge was one of the best stories of the year in Drew Harris, who had 17 carries and 109 yards. Drew Harris, of course, a guy who blew his knee out in high school, a 4-star recruit committed to Virginia Tech, transferred to UMass, and finally end up at IUP, shook off the rust, first 100-yard game of his career. Last week it was Chris Temple, and last year it was Luigi Listabrenza. So IUP, of course, with a stable of running backs, and we have to think they're going to use that running back by committee strategy for the rest of the season. But in your opinion, who will take over as the lead guy for IUP moving forward?
I really think it's a toss-up. I don't think you can really separate the two because no one's really had a decisive performance. It was Chris Temple the first week. It was Drew Harris this week. I think it fluctuates between, like you said, the best thing is just keep that running back system. I personally think it's an in-game decision, who's really, finding their lanes and being able to get up the field. I think that's really the best decision that they can go with instead of just choosing one guy. Because Luigi Listabrenza was the guy last year, but he didn't really have an explosive game this past week. I think he had like 84 yards. So not really too much impressive, finding the lanes and stuff like that. But I think if they just stick with that system of keeping their running backs in committee, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, we're pretty much in agreement here. I think that if you have more than one running back that can run the football, you should use that as much as possible. I mean, if you have 2 or 3 guys that can run and get you 50 yards a game, then you got to do that because it's going to wear a defense down. You have different guys that run different sorts of ways. If you guy could run right through the hole and get that tough yardage, then you need that. If you have a guy could bounce it outside or run zone reads and things like that, you can. Even the quarterbacks we saw are a little mobile. And when you have that really helps out on certain situations. Even short yard situations, the Crimson Hawks did very well. They did pretty well on the 3rd down conversions. And if you have a quarterback that can run also, that adds another dimension to the team. So the Crimson Hawks, if you can have as many guys that can run the football and wear a team down as they do, that's what you should focus on.
Yeah, certainly a lot of different weapons that IUP has at their disposal, and a lot of things that an opposing defense would have to prepare for in a given week in practice. They have to devote time to saying, okay, there's these guys who can run the football. They all are different, and I think you're kind of right, Malusi. It's almost who has the hot hand, so to speak, and who's seen the field well and running correctly in whatever game. We saw it was Chris Temple. He was hurt, so someone else had to step in. Drew Harris certainly was able to provide that spark. 4 players had rushing touchdowns for IUP. We'll talk about one of them right now and talk about the quarterbacks as well, because Lenny Williams did have a rushing touchdown. He and Chase Haslett both played in the game and put up similar numbers from the quarterback position once again, and Coach Signetti says they're just going to keep on rolling with it here. Williams, 65 yards and had a couple designed quarterback runs for him, had a nice run on the read option and that touchdown that I mentioned. So you look at these 2 quarterbacks, they've put up very similar numbers in the passing game. So do you think that Lenny Williams' running abilities sets him apart from Chase Haslett as far as making him the starter for this team?
I mean, I think it does. I mean, I think having that ability to run definitely keeps the defense on their toes. I mean, we've seen it in the NFL with Russell Wilson, RG3 in his first year, and even Andrew Luck, who can get out the pocket, a sturdy guy. Ben Roethlisberger's been doing that for years. I mean, he can run when he wants to. So I think it definitely gives your team an edge with running the football and keeping the defense on its toes. Now, do I think Coach Signetti is going to go with Lenny Williams out of starter? I don't think so, because I think he's going to still do the quarterback series switching. But if I was him, I would stick with Lenny Williams because I think he gives you more upside. I think he's a little bit more accurate with his passes, and I also think he reads defenses a little bit better than Chase Haslett. He can pick things up a little bit more quickly. But we'll see how that plays out against Mercyhurst this Saturday.
Yeah, I think the Crimson Hawks will still go with Haslett as quarterback, but I think Williams does add that different dynamic type of, because you said all the runners that can run the NFL, there's a lot of running. When you have such a good running game that the Crimson Hawks have right now, that opens up the play action, and that opens up the quarterback to run also. So when you have that, teams are going to start respecting the Crimson Hawks more because their offensive line is playing so well, letting those running backs get lanes to get open, so that Lenny Williams can even roll out to the sides, and he has a lot of receivers. Walt McGeese is a pretty good receiver for the Crimson Hawks. You can get outside and do different things with him. So I think eventually he will be the quarterback that the Crimson Hawks want, but right now I think Haslett will be that quarterback because he has more experience for the Crimson Hawks.
Yeah, and absolutely. We're going to switch our focus over to the defense, who was touted, of course, as one of the best in the PSAC. There's certainly some issues and some flaws with the defense, but one thing they are doing, especially better than last year, is taking the ball away. And when they're taking the ball away, they're making it count. 2 pick sixes in as many games. This time it was Dorian Lane, Male Athlete of the Week honors at IUP, for his 19-yard interception return for a touchdown. He also had 7 tackles and a tackle for loss from his linebacker spot. And boy, Dorian Lane was smiling like a butcher's dog on the way down to the end zone. He was all fired up. How important are his abilities and leadership to this team? Dorian Lane, a guy who's been there and done that, part of a conference championship with the Crimson Hawks.
I mean, I think it's huge. I mean, a great player, and Ray Lewis once said, greatness is a lot of small things done well, and he does the small things very, very well. He communicates with his teammates. He lets them know what assignment, and he leads by example. Talk about a guy who has been through it all, ups and downs, and he seems to come through for his team every time, and I think he showed that this past Saturday. And I think the experience of being a senior, like I said, being through the ups and downs definitely helps him keep this young defensive group in line and in check, not get rattled by the pressure of what the outsiders say. They're a team, they focus on what they have to do. And I think Dorian Lane is the perfect example of a guy who leads by example and puts it out on the field.
Yeah, being a great linebacker, being part of that is being a smart linebacker, and that's something he is. Coming out of high school, he was very highly recruited. He was a great player. He ended up going to Duquesne for a a year, came here, still did very well for the Crimson Hawks. You see him, if you can run up and plug a hole like he can, you could do well. But he can also drop back in coverage, as you saw. He got the interception, return it for a touchdown, showing his athletic ability. But he's a great linebacker. He can come up through the hole and move side to side and keep his feet next to each other and come up through the hole and plug it. And that's what he's been doing all season and last year. And a guy, as Josh just said, that won a championship with the Crimson Hawks. He knows what he's doing. He leads the team by example, as you said. And I think he has a really great season indoor for him.
Yeah, Dorian Lane and the rest of the IUP Crimson Hawks were able to pick up their first win of the year, 1-1. But time to hit the road for IUP. They've got the Mercyhurst Lakers coming up. It's their homecoming, and I was talking with Coach Signetti after the game, and he brought up something that was really interesting, and I didn't even think of it. Mercyhurst hasn't lost a game since they lost to IUP last year here at Miller Stadium. They've won about 10 games in a row. They're a team that's absolutely on fire right now. So let's take a look at this road game for IUP, the first one of the year, going to Mercyhurst for their homecoming. Certainly going to be a tremendous challenge for a young IUP Crimson Hawks football team.
Absolutely. I think the biggest key for IUP is to, play within their game. And I think they have a tendency to get out of the game when they go away, or they expect too much that they get a little bit too hyped. But I think against this game, I think they'll be fine. I think this win this past week is definitely going to help them going forward into Mercyhurst. I think the offense looked a lot better. They looked like they knew what they were doing. The running plays looked more, they looked like, it just seemed like they were 1 week of preparation definitely helped them. And the defense looked so much better. They didn't let up in the second half. So I think that the combination of those things, along with the running game, along with Lenny Williams and Chase Hazlitt, I think they're going to be able to provide a great challenge to Mercyhurst Lakers this coming Saturday.
Yeah, I think the Crimson Hawks would have came in, if they would have came into this game 2-0, they would have had a lot more momentum rolling and been better, because they did beat this team by a lot last year, by a wide margin. I believe it was 41-7. Mm-hmm. And if you can beat a team like that, you remember that game and think that we could do this twice. Now, it's going to be tough. This team, it's a new team. Mercyhurst is a completely different team than last year. As you said, they're on a big winning streak right now. It's their homecoming. They're not going to let any team come into their stadium and beat them on their homecoming. But if IUP can keep the running game up like they have last week, then there's really no reason why this team cannot win. But that's what it's going to count on, really.
Yeah, and to just update the injuries before Saturday, Matthew Moad was able to play in the second half. Jordan Brown should be back. Gabe Ewell should be back at the receiver spot. So IUP looks to have their full complement available to them. They're all in no matter what, and that mantra is certainly going to be put to the test this Saturday against a very good Mercyhurst Lakers squad. Crimson Hawks try to shut down the Lake Show. It's an audio-only broadcast, so be sure to follow IUP Athletics for updates concerning the IUP football team. We're back on the air in 2 weeks' time for homecoming, but that's all the time we have here in the Crimson Huddle. For Vaughn Delzell and Malusi Kitchen, we'll step out, come back, closing the show with the 2-minute drill here on The Big Hit.
Want to learn more about IUP-TV? We have the solution. IUP-TV is now online on Facebook. You can find us by simply searching Facebook for IUP-TV. Once you click like, you can check out your favorite shows on our IUP-TV showcase, view our broadcast schedule, get updates on everything about your favorite station, and tell us how much you love your favorite shows. IUP-TV, not like other stations.
Students in communications media at Indiana University of Pennsylvania can focus on a variety of areas, including media promotions. Our promotions students learn their skills by working in a hands-on environment, gaining real-world experience. They learn how to use media to promote, produce, and manage events, and how media organizations operate. They create promotional campaigns and help clients pitch their services, products, and events. With excellent classes led by experienced teachers, the Communications Media Department at IUP is perfect for students interested in media promotions.
Hello everyone, I'm William Gosset, and this is the 2-minute drill. Week 2 of the NFL has come and gone now, and there are some important questions in Philadelphia that need to be answered. Take reigning NFL rushing champ DeMarco Murray, for example. After only 2 yards on 15 carries against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys, was he just a great product and a great system? Can Byron Maxwell cover anything else but air? Can anybody answer that for me? Or head coach Chip Kelly, who is under fire for a 0-2 start after trading away key assets because they weren't Chip Kelly guys? Here's an answer that may work.
You got rid of a lot of these guys, Chip, because they weren't Chip Kelly guys. Well, maybe, just maybe, Chip Kelly isn't a Philadelphia guy, and we should get rid of you.
This passion of being a Philadelphian has to translate onto the field. The lucky number of the week is 3. The college football rankings came out Sunday evening, and there were 2 teams ranked 3rd, TCU and Ole Miss. So that would make the lucky number 6, but the power of 6 multiplied by 1738 equals a horned frog rebel. What I'm trying to say is there was mayhem with the BCS system and even in the playoffs inaugural season a year ago. So playoff committee, can you resist toying with the loyal fans of your billion-dollar corporation until week 10 at the earliest? We'd all appreciate it. Watch out, Cromwell Brown. There is a new contender for the worst #1 pick in NBA history. The Minnesota Timberwolves and 22-year-old forward Anthony Bennett have reached a buyout agreement. After being drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2013, Bennett was involved in a 2014 trade that sent him as well as Andrew Wiggins to Minnesota and Kevin Love up north to the land. Bennett will be in search for his 3rd team in his 3rd NBA season. Not the type of way you want to begin any profession. Hopefully Bennett will find his way as a missing piece to a young upstart team. Well, that's all we have for today. And from director Michael Martone, producers Kyle Condor, Vaughn Dizell, and the entire Big Hit crew, I'm William Gaucher. Have an excellent week.